Welcome back, everyone. Stage 3, the false classmate. So the episode kicks things off moments after the last, with the Japanese being herded out of the area after the prince called for an immediate ceasefire. And, Jeremiah isn't too thrilled about it.
Why the hell are we letting the 11s go? What about the poison gas they've stolen?
And honestly, that makes sense. I mean, from his perspective, they've yet to get eyes on this thing, which means they're basically just letting them get away with a WMD, or a weapon of mass destruction. So I get where he's coming from. But anyway, a random soldier responds by saying that they're just doing what they've been instructed to do by the prince. But Jeremiah pushes back still, asking to speak to General Bartley or someone else on his staff. But the same soldier ends up saying that none of them are currently at their post, which Jeremiah then responds to by saying,
"Are you telling me Prince Clovis is alone on the con?"
And from there, we make our way back to Lelouch and Clovis.
I'm overjoyed, Lelouch. What a blessing to have you back.
Okay, so I'm gonna point out here that he's actually probably telling the truth. And there are a couple of reasons why I say that, but we'll have to wait until a future video to really get into it. So for now, let's go ahead and put a pin in it so that we can come back to it later.
They said you died when Japan was brought into the fold.
So I could totally see why they would think that. I mean, it's not like there was any effort made to come and get them before launching this attack. And it's also not like they held back at all, even while knowing that 2 members of royalty were currently living there. And there's actually a specific reason for why things played out like that, but let's put a pin in that too for now. But anyway, Clovis suggests that the 2 of them head back to the homeland so that everyone can know that he's still alive. But Lelouch is like, nah, claiming that Clovis only wants to take him back so that he can be used as a tool for diplomacy again. Because as he reminds Clovis, the whole reason that he and his sister were sent to Japan to begin with was because they were being used as diplomatic tools. And I realize that that might be kind of a foreign concept, so let me break it down real quick. A diplomatic tool is basically something that's used to foster good relations between 2 or more nations. Some examples of that include negotiations, treaties, accords, alliances, or in some of the more fucked up cases, people can be used as diplomatic tools. And in this case, in order to foster a good relationship with Japan, Britannia gave them a prince and a princess as, well, a gesture of good faith. And if you're confused by that, because, you know, the whole invasion thing, well, yeah, guess who was also pretty fucking caught off guard by that? Hence Lelouch's rage and the fact that he and his sister decided to go into hiding as opposed to returning home. Because clearly those in charge, i.e. their fucking father, didn't give enough of a fuck about them to come pick them up before attacking. And if you're wondering why the Emperor sent 2 of his kids there, knowing what he had planned for Japan, well, Lelouch has an idea.
It was because my mother was killed.
And from there, we take a trip down memory lane. Blood-soaked and bullet-ridden memory lane. Because saying his mother was killed is putting it mildly. Like, she was hit with a Gatling gun's worth of bullets. And yeah, Lelouch then goes on to explain that the reason this all happened is because while his mother did hold the title of Knight of Honor, she was still born a commoner. And apparently, according to Lelouch, the other imperial consorts, meaning the other women Charles was fucking on, because man, was he fucking a lot of women, but that's besides the point. Lelouch claimed that one of his consorts, or one of their children, had enough of an issue with Lelouch's mother being brought into the fold and siring children that might one day inherit the throne that they put a hit out on her, and subsequently killed her, apparently in front of her youngest child, which, damn. But anyway, Lelouch claims that while they tried to make it seem like it was the work of terrorists, he wasn't fooled by it. And he goes on to say that he knows, without a doubt, that
You people killed my mother!
And yeah, this is his motivation. Or it's at least part of it. Like I said, there's also the fact that they sent him and his sister to Japan knowing what they had in store for it. And there's even more to it on top of that, but we'll get to that later in this video. Now, after Lelouch throws out his accusation, his brother denies it, saying,
It wasn't me! I swear to you it wasn't!
And to be honest, if I were Lelouch, I I don't know if I'd believe him. Like, as we just saw, dude has no problem doing some pretty reprehensible shit in order to hold on to his title as prince. Like, lineage is obviously very important to him, and if he felt like it was being threatened or even devalued by nature of having a commoner in the mix, then I would argue that it wouldn't be too unreasonable to believe that he'd have a role in what happened. But then there's also the fact that he and Lelouch seem to have some sort of relationship. Like, given what was said in the last episode, it seemed as though they spent a lot of time together as children, playing chess and whatnot. But then we've also seen that this guy's a pretty good actor, so maybe he was just being fake with him. But then, wait a second, why am I doing this? There's a really simple way to figure out if he was in any way involved. So, Lelouch, go ahead and hit old boy with the truth serum.
Tell me everything you know. By whose hand was she slain?
Okay, so before he answers, something I want to point out is the immediate change in his demeanor the moment the Geass takes effect. Like, it's very interesting how calm he gets. Like, you can see all the anxiety and stress just fade away as the aura envelops his eyes. Which, oh shit, I don't think I mentioned that last time, but people who are influenced by Geass have this sort of red ring that encircles their cornea. That's kind of how you can tell that someone is under the influence of it. But yeah, speaking of under the influence, given how calm he looks right now, plus the added effect of his eyes looking kind of red, it really does look like he just took a hit of something dank and he's finally feeling it. But anyway, Clovis goes on to say,
My brother, second Prince Schneisel and second Princess Cornelia. They can tell you.
Well, damn. Though, I guess it would be too easy to get the answer in the third episode, right? But that doesn't stop Lelouch from trying again by asking him to elaborate.
They were at the heart of this?
But unfortunately, Clovis just remains silent. Well, actually, he makes the move to speak, but because he doesn't know anything else, he just remains quiet. Though the fact that he moved like he was going to say something was something that I thought was kinda interesting. Anyway, after that, Lelouch blinks and the Geass gets cancelled, and immediately after that, Clovis does this.
It wasn't me! I had nothing to do with it!
And okay, so a couple of things I want to point out here. For starters, I wanted to take note of the fact that the moment Lelouch cancelled his Geass, Clovis went right back to acting like he did before the Geass was cast. Like, the moment it was cancelled. And that seems a little inconsistent, given Viletta seemed to have been kinda disoriented for a moment before fully regaining her self-awareness. It's not a big deal or anything, but it is just a little inconsistent. And secondly, I just wanted to point out the fact that Clovis had name-dropped both Prince Schneisel and Princess Cornelia. And while they won't be introduced for a while, I can't help but appreciate the foundation being set for their overall importance to the story and where it's headed. Kinda like with Toto in the previous episode. But yeah, now Lelouch knows that Clovis didn't have anything to do with it. So I guess he's in the No, I guess not.
You can't! We may have different mothers, but you and I are still blood!
And I'm not gonna lie, I feel a little bad for this guy. It's weird because I know he's a piece of shit and that he probably deserves so much worse than this, but it's just, I don't know, man. I feel like I'm getting soft in my old age because this is just sad to me, especially because I know that he actually cares about Lelouch, and we'll have a deeper discussion about that at a later time, but the fact that Lelouch is just sadistically smiling as he approaches him and sticks this gun in his face is, it's just rough, I guess. But anyway, Lelouch goes on to say,
You can't change the world without getting your hands dirty.
As he goes to put his finger on the trigger, pulling it ever so slowly until we transition to a new day, I guess.
Wake up, Lelouch!
And yeah, we're back at Ashford Academy, with Lelouch hanging out with all of the classmates that were introduced back in episode 1. We have Millie, Rivel, Shirley, and Nina. Fucking Nina. And it looks like they're just doing regular high school shit. Which, again, the tonal whiplash is bonkers sometimes. But at the same time, I feel like it's done in such a way that doesn't really distract from the story that's being told. But anyway, this scene is mostly inconsequential because, like I said, they're just doing high school student council shit. Now, I will point out that both Rivel and Shirley end up calling Lelouch out for his behavior yesterday, which Yeah, all of that shit that went down in the first 2 episodes happened yesterday, and yet he's already back here at school. But yeah, they both comment on his behavior, but before he has a chance to come up with an excuse for why he was acting so strange, Millie ends up changing the subject and getting them focused on handling the budget. And yeah, the whole scene is just there to kind of showcase the interpersonal relationships of our main cast. Like with Millie, we see that she's the president of the student council, and that she's taking charge of the meeting, telling the others what to do and whatnot. With Shirley, we see that she's super excited about helping out and getting involved, whereas where Rivel, their secretary, is concerned, he'd rather skirt their responsibilities and do something else, which Lelouch, who surprisingly is the vice president of the student council, co-signs on. And then lastly, we have Nina, fucking Nina, off on her own, not really all that invested in what the others are doing. And yeah, from there we switch scenes to later that day, where we see some students looking at a broadcast regarding what happened in Shinjuku yesterday. And the narrative is playing out just as Lelouch had predicted, with the Britannians pushing the idea that the terrorists stole poison gas and then subsequently went on to release it in their own territory, which really kind of serves to make the Japanese look super incompetent, but I guess that also works for the narrative that they're pushing. But anyway, when Shirley overhears the other students, she turns to Lelouch, as she remembers the fact that when he called her yesterday, he had mentioned something about Shinjuku too. And to his credit, he puts on a good face as he tells her,
I heard about it from a friend. That's why I called you yesterday.
And again, we get to see that Lelouch is great when it comes to lying to others. But when you consider his past and the fact that he's basically had to lie to everyone for every day of his life since the Britannians invaded, it makes sense why he'd be so good at it. Anyway, the students continue talking about the incident, with one of them even saying,
Hey, check out the footage of those dead 11s!
And here we get yet another instance of the Britannians seeing the 11s as subhuman. Like the fact that all of these lives were lost, and yet this kid's over there like, oh wow, check this out. It just feels gross. But anyway, while the students continue their discussion and the news broadcast continues spreading lies, Lelouch thinks to himself,
this is strange. Why would they cover it up?
And from there, we immediately head back to the past, or yesterday, where we finally get a resolution in regard to what happened between Lelouch and his brother Clovis. And, well, yeah, he killed him. He shot his own brother in the face, which even saying that is kind of insane. But that's what he did. And that's what he was referring to when he said that they were covering it up. Because with all the mentions of Shinjuku and terrorism, no one has brought up the fact that the prince was killed while all of this was going on. Though, to be fair, I get why they wouldn't want to say anything about it, because it would kind of make them look weak. Think about it. You're telling me that some ragtag group of rebels were able to roll up and murk a prince, and y'all don't even know who did it? Do you know how fucking embarrassing that would be for Britannia? Like, how are you gonna talk all this shit about being so superior, but y'all can't even protect the viceroy of this area? Like, it just makes them look really weak, and in turn, gives credibility to the insurgents who executed old boy. Like, it gives them a certain level of legitimacy as a threat to the Empire, and that's the last thing the Empire wants in an area that's clearly rife with those who already wish to see them gone. Basically, it gives the people of Japan hope. And when it comes to Britannia maintaining their control of Japan, hope can be a dangerous thing, especially if it's capitalized on. But we'll get more into that a little later. Anyway, let's talk about what happens after this, because I think it's actually incredibly impactful for Lelouch's character. Okay, so after he has this flashback, we see Lelouch literally throw up in his mouth. Like, the thought of what he did to Clovis triggered an actual physical response from him. And that's definitely worth pointing out, because it shows that he isn't just unfazed by what he did, despite it kind of coming across that way in the moment. Like, when he was talking to Clovis, he was confident as hell, smiling as he pointed that pistol at his brother's head. But we see now that that was partly a facade. a mask he wore in the moment to give him the strength to carry out what he felt needed to be done. And I guess I'll say this now, but the idea of a mask will be a prominent theme going forward, even if it isn't necessarily expanded upon until much later. But yeah, the thought of what he did caused him to head to the bathroom to, I guess, get the vomit out of his mouth. And after he cleans up, he looks at his reflection and says,
I guess that I'm not as tough as I thought I was.
And I like this because it kind of goes to further speak to the idea of the mask that he was wearing. How he believed that that mask he wore in that moment was the real him. That it was him channeling his resolve and becoming who he needed to be in order to accomplish his goals. But now, as he stares at his own weary reflection, he realizes that even though he did muster the strength to do what he felt needed to be done, it doesn't change the fact that it wasn't easy. It doesn't change the fact that despite him trying to pretend like it didn't, it did, in fact, take a toll on him. And he also needs to come to terms with the fact that if he intends on going down this road, it'll only become all the more arduous. And I think that's hella impactful for his character. But anyway, from there we switch scenes to Jeremiah and Viletta as they have a conversation regarding yesterday's events and what the future holds for them. And while the conversation itself is very brief, mostly dealing with the fact that they're irritated with Bartley for having left Clovis alone, I did want to point out something that Viletta said, as well as Jeremiah's response to it.
Now that Prince Clovis is out of the way, we purebloods can...
Let me make that call. We still need to woo everyone over.
And okay, so clearly there's a bit to unpack here. And let's start with the notion of purebloods, because I did briefly mention them in my previous video. So the purebloods are a sort of faction or subsection of the military. They're also heavily involved with their own political agenda, mostly stemming from their belief that only pure-blooded Britannians should be allowed to, well, exist in Britannian society. So, like, the whole honorary Britannian thing that we've spoken about a couple of times, yeah, they're like, fuck all of that. They do not fuck with the numbers and feel that their inclusion into Britannian society is a blight on what makes Britannia such a great nation. And if it were up to them, they would do away with the honorary Britannian program in its entirety. Now, in regard to Viletta saying that Prince Clovis is out of the way, she isn't saying it like they necessarily wanted him to die. They're not disloyal to the Empire. In fact, we saw Jeremiah gleefully follow orders when it came to killing 11s. So yeah, it isn't so much that they harbored some sort of ill will towards Clovis, but more so that they're willing to use his death, or more so the power vacuum that's formed because of his death, to their benefit in order to seize control. Because something else worth noting about the purebloods is that they're a relatively small faction, but they're now hoping to increase their reach by seizing control. Now, in regard to Jeremiah's response, he's basically saying that Viletta is being a bit overzealous about things, and that they need to proceed with caution before trying to usurp control. And yeah, from there we move on from this conversation and head back to Ashford Academy, where we see Lelouch is heading back to class. And guess who's just hanging out in this class? Yup, it's our girl Kallen. And I mean, immediately the floodgates in your mind just burst open because what? Yeah, so apparently our girl Kallen is a student here. And if you're confused by that, that's okay, because all will be revealed soon enough. Now, the moment Lelouch sees her, he flashes back to that moment in episode 1 when he first laid eyes on her. And remember how I made a note about him saying,
I've seen her before.
Well, this is where he's seen her, as he goes on to think,
Of course. That's why she's so familiar.
And yeah, I really like this because they even give a good reason as to why he didn't immediately connect the dots. Because, as it turns out, Kallen is often away from school due to some sort of illness. Which, I mean, is clearly bullshit, but it does seem to be working out for her, as no one knows what she's really up to. Well, no one but Lelouch. But anyway, as Lelouch sits down in class, Ribble sits behind him and says,
See something you like? You've got a thing for her, don't you?
And I just love the quick shot to Shirley after she hears Rivel say this. Like, the fact that her ears perk up at the fact that Rivel is saying that Lelouch has a thing for someone. Because I imagine she's over there like, who is he talking about? Is it me? Oh, I hope it's me. Like, it's so juvenile. And I don't say that in a negative way. It's literally just childish, which makes sense because despite all the crazy shit that these two kids are doing, the rest of them are just, well, I mean, they're just kids. And I just love these little slice of life moments. But anyway, Lelouch goes on to comment on how Kallen hasn't been around this whole semester, apparently, with Rivel going on to add,
Kallen Stadtfeld. They say she's sick or something. Still, her grades are at the top of the class. And she's a member of the Stadtfeld family, which means she's rolling in money.
And I appreciate the streamlined bit of exposition that they just dropped on us. And honestly, there's not much to really add to it. I mean, she claims to be sick, but it's obvious that she's just fine. Hell, more than fine, really. But it is interesting, right? That Rivel claims that she's Britannian, and yet in the first episode we heard her say,
"We're not 11s, we're Japanese."
So, which is it? Is she a Britannian who comes from a wealthy family, or is she a Japanese freedom fighter? Anyway, after Rivel teases Lelouch about having a crush on Kallen, we transition to her hanging out with some other girls, and it's kind of funny. So a bee pops up, and the other girls just start screaming and running away, and Kallen is just kind of like, seriously? But because she needs to blend in, she follows suit and also runs from the bee. However, when she's alone, or at least when she thinks that she's alone, we see her drop her mask as she just swats the bee with her hand and kills it, which then leads to her saying,
God, I hate this. I'm sick of acting like a freaking invalid.
And y'all, I just love Kallen. Maybe not as much as Basefinger does over on Reddit, if you know, you know, but still, she's just super awesome. But anyway, unbeknownst to her, she was being watched by Lelouch, and having seen her act like that, he feels confident that she's the same woman from Shinjuku, and thus he goes on to use his Geass on her.
I want answers.
Of course.
So before we get into the questions themselves, I want to take note of how she responded to his Geass. Like, she sounds like a soldier taking commands from a general. Like, she actively becomes more alert, as if she's standing at attention for him. And this is very different from, say, Clovis or Viletta, who both just got real calm. And it's definitely different from those dudes from episode 1. It's just really interesting how different people seem to react to the power of Geass. Or, I guess, more so, how they react to someone who they feel is in a position of authority. But anyway, Lelouch then proceeds to ask her some questions. He starts by asking her if she was the one piloting the Glasgow in Shinjuku yesterday. He then follows it up by asking her why she chose to become an insurgent. And in regard to that question, he's actually pretty surprised when she says,
Because I'm Japanese, though technically I'm half Britannian.
And yeah, she's half and half. And if you're curious to know more about that, then don't worry, because we will get to it eventually. But anyway, like I said, Lelouch is surprised by that revelation. So surprised, in fact, that we see him blink, which should mean that he's ended the Geass, right? Or not? Okay, I'm actually a little confused, because how does this work exactly? Like, with Clovis, the moment he blinked, the Geass canceled itself. But now it's not. Like, his eye isn't even in Geass mode right now, and yet she's still under his trance. Like, I get that it's a magical power or whatever, but, like, consistency is key when it comes to establishing how powers work. And this one has behaved differently damn near every time we've seen it. Like, Viletta was left in a trance for a long-ass time after Lelouch Geassed her, but with Clovis, we saw that he snapped out of it right after Lelouch blinked. But now we just saw Lelouch blink again and saw his eye go back to normal, and yet Kallen is still under the effect of his Geass. Like, there's just not a lot of consistency in those areas. But whatever, while Lelouch continues speaking with Kallen, we see good old Shirley roll up and take pause when she notices them talking to each other. And we'll come back to that in just a second. Now, when we switch back to Kallen and Lelouch, we see her snapping out of his Geass and having no recollection of the conversation they just had. As as per usual. However, as Lelouch walks away, he decides to turn back around and give her just one more command to make sure she doesn't say anything, and, well, it doesn't go the way he expected.
Don't tell anyone about Shinjuku.
What do you mean about Shinjuku? Why would you say that?
And he's just a little taken back by that because, that's never happened before. So he tries again and says,
Go back to class.
As soon as I get an answer to my question, I will.
And, yeah, the Geass ain't working. So that's awkward. And I love how Kallen just slowly starts to drop her mask again as she gets more aggressive, which, makes sense. Like, why is this guy coming at me about Shinjuku? Does he know? And if so, how am I gonna make sure he doesn't tell anyone? Like, this is very much not normal high school shenanigans. This chick is about that life. She has killed before, and if it comes down to keeping her identity safe, she may very well kill again. Shit, Lelouch, more than anyone, understands the lengths a person will go in order to keep their identity a secret. So yeah, old boy's in trouble, and I appreciate him backing up in fear as he tries to get the hell away from her. And what I appreciate even more is good old Shirley coming in with the most effective cock block I have ever seen in my life.
Lulu, Kallen! It's time to head over to the chem lab. You better get a move on.
And it just cracks me up because she unintentionally saved his ass by trying to cockblock him. And it's such a crazy combination of slice of life, because she only did that so that Kallen would stop talking to the boy she likes, and high stakes drama, because Kallen was definitely finna come after Lelouch for what he just said. Like, I love it. But anyway, Lelouch, while keeping his mask on, runs off and says,
Oh crap, it's my turn to set up for class!
All the while pondering what the hell just happened back there. But yeah, from there we transition to later that day, where we're finally officially introduced to Nunally and her maid/friend, Sayuko. Now, we haven't seen Nunally since the first episode, and even then it was a super brief, static image. But now we get to really see her as her own person. And the first thing we notice is that she's in a wheelchair. And what we notice shortly after that is that she's also blind. And I like the way this information is fed to us. Like, it starts off with an extended, distanced shot of her sitting with Sayuko, and we can see that Nunaly's seat is different from Sayuko's in that it has wheels. And then when Sayuko presents Nunally with this origami crane, she does this.
A bird?
And we can see that she does this without ever actually opening her eyes. So yeah, I thought it was a nice way to get the point across without having to blatantly lay it all out, Like, I'm all for an exposition dump, but I also appreciate subtlety too. Now, something else I want to point out is what Nunally says next.
Amazing. The Japanese are so skillful.
And I really love that because it shows us who Nunally is as a person. The first time we see her interact with a Japanese person, she refers to them as Japanese, which is something that no one besides her brother has done. So we can tell from the jump that she's a kind person. Also, apparently, she's got some crazy hearing skills because she could hear her brother coming from down the hall well before Sayuko could.
Lady Nunally?
I'm sorry I'm so late.
And yeah, the scene ends with Lelouch coming in and greeting them both. And from there, we transition to General Bartley, who's currently meeting with the members of his research group, which are the people who were keeping our girl C2 locked up. And basically, Bartley's telling them that they gotta pack their shit up because Clovis is gone now and they no longer have anyone covering their asses in regard to what they're doing here. And what exactly are they doing, you ask? Come on, guys, you know the answer to this. We will get to it, yes. Anyway, a few things worth pointing out here. One is the fact that Bartley mentions that he and the other staff officers have no recollection of what happened and why they left Prince Clovis alone, which is obviously just a byproduct of Lelouch Geassing them. Now, the second thing I want to mention is the fact that Bartley says,
If His Majesty learns this experiment's gone on without his knowledge.
And I just think that it's equal parts sad and hilarious that this man is like about to fall apart at the idea of the Emperor finding out about this. Like, he seriously sounds like he's about to cry, and I kind of feel bad for him, but at the same time, it's just hilarious knowing what I know about R2. It's like, silly Bartley. But anyway, the last thing I'll point out here are the images of C2. Specifically this one here with the sepia filter, which I'm imagining is supposed to make it appear aged. And it does seem older given the old looking planes in the background. And I know it's blurry, but they look old to me. But anyway, this is kind of meant to allude to who C2 is and how old. You know what? We'll get to it. Anyway, from there, we switch back to Lelouch and Nunally, where we see them having a nice family dinner. And I want to point out that we see Lelouch cutting up his sister's food. And the reason I want to bring attention to this is because they have a maid, like a servant, pretty much, and yet he's doing this himself. Like, what I'm saying is, he doesn't have to do this. He wants to do this. And I feel like that speaks to his character. But yeah, the conversation is pretty casual, with Nunally talking about Sayuko teaching her about origami and whatnot. But I will note that Nunally says that Lelouch scared her last night, which she doesn't go into any further detail about, but if I had to guess, I would say that maybe he was having nightmares and was screaming in his sleep or something. Like, that's the only thing that I could really think of. Which also, shit, now that I think about it, him sleeping during the student council meeting was probably because he had a hard time sleeping the night before. So that's a cool connection. But anyway, Nunally then goes on to talk about origami cranes and how
if you fold 1,000 of these cranes, your wish will come true.
Which, of course, I had to look up, and yeah, that is true. And it's wild, because in just 3 episodes of this show, I've already learned more about Japanese culture than I have in the 27 episodes of Death Note that I've covered. But anyway, something else I wanted to point out is the idea of birds as a sort of literary device for this show. Like, if you pay attention, you'll notice that birds pop up pretty frequently in this show. Not only that, but during that fever dream in episode 1, we saw bird feathers while C2 was giving her speech. And in addition to that, the mark of Geass itself is kind of like a bird, the way it just flies into whoever it's cast on. And even Lelouch compares the power of Geass to actually, I'm getting way ahead of myself on that one. But yeah, Nunally goes on to ask Lelouch if he had a wish that he wanted to make, and he says that he doesn't. However, when he asks Nunally if she has a wish, she goes on to say,
I wish the world was a gentler place.
And again, this is showing us that she's just a genuinely good person. Lelouch then responds by saying something interesting.
When the day finally comes that you can see again, I'm sure that it will be.
And the reason that I say it's interesting is because it implies that her blindness isn't based on something physical, but more so something that's psychosomatic. But anyway, I also want to take note of the fact that he promised her, and we'll come back to that in just a second. Now, from there, Lelouch goes on to think to himself about his and Nunaly's fates if they were ever to be discovered. And let's break down a couple of the things he says. For starters, he mentions the fact that
the Ashford family's sheltering us for now.
And yeah, the Ashford family, for which this school is named after, is part of the reason they've been able to avoid being noticed by the Empire. And guess who's a part of the Ashford family? Millie. So Millie actually knows everything about Lelouch and Nunally. Well, not everything, but she does know who they are and where they come from. Now, in addition to that, he mentions,
if our identity is exposed, even Rivel, Shirley, and the others will abandon us.
And it's kind of heartbreaking that he doesn't have more faith in his friends, especially knowing just how much they all care about him. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get it from his perspective, but damn, it just kind of sucks. But also, I love that he just mentioned everyone else by name except for Nina. Fucking Nina. But yeah, he goes on to mention the fact that he worries that they'll be used as political tools again, before finally telling himself,
I have to build a world where Nunally can at least find happiness.
And here he goes on to make his true intentions crystal clear. Yes, he wants desperately to destroy Britannia and get revenge, but really, truly, more than anything, he wants to create a world wherein his sister can find the happiness that she desires. But yeah, from there we pull the focus back to their conversation as Nunally mentions that Sayuko also taught her about something called the Japanese promise, which looks a lot like a pinky promise, but it's a bit more severe than that, as Nunally goes on to sing,
Cross my heart, hope to die, eat 1,000 needles if I lie. Pinky promise song.
Whew, peak cringe, though I imagine it sounds a lot better in actual Japanese. But anyway, after that, Lelouch goes on to jokingly say that he might have to one day eat 1,000 needles, to which Nunally responds by saying that he better not lie then. And he then goes on to say,
Don't you worry, I'll never lie, I swear.
Which is, in and of itself, a lie. But yeah, anyway, welcome to the comments section, or what will eventually be the comments section. For now, I'm just giving y'all a heads up that I have decided that for the mid-episode break, I will be choosing comments from the previous videos to go over and discuss. So if there's anything I missed, or any additional insight y'all want to provide on the things that I talked about, feel free to leave a comment on this video, or the ones from episodes 1 and 2, and I'll pull a couple of them and talk about them. And yeah. But alright, when we head back from the break, we find Lelouch standing near a sort of creek on the school campus, mulling over yesterday's events with Kallen and how his Geass seemed to malfunction when attempting to use it on her a second time. So, in order to figure out if his Geass does still work the way it's supposed to, he decides to use it on a teacher that happens to be walking by.
Sir, what are the topics going to be for the essays on your next exam?
And this was smart, a very low-stakes use of the Geass to just kinda see what happens. Because even if it doesn't work, it's not like he's in any trouble for simply asking what will be on the next exam. But anyway, he uses it and it does end up working, as the teacher responds by telling him the specific topics that will be on the next exam. However, when he attempts to ask the same question a second time, the teacher ends up saying,
Right, very funny. Maybe you should try studying, huh?
Which, rude, but okay. Nevertheless, with this test, Lelouch realizes that
I can only use it on a person once.
Which is important, because now Lelouch knows that he's out of luck in regard to fixing the situation with Kallen by using his Geass on her again. So that means he'll have to figure out some other way to turn this situation around. And also, I want to kind of just reiterate the fact that Kallen isn't the only person that he's used his Geass on already, as both Viletta and Bartley fall into that category as well. So yeah. Now from there we switch back to Kallen as she's having a conversation with Oogi about her desire to leave school and head back to the front lines with the rest of their people. But Ogi's quick to squash that idea as he says,
The army's on a high alert right now. Stay there and let things cool off.
And while Kallen isn't thrilled about the idea of staying here, I do want to point out the fact that, unlike the other members of her group, she has the luxury of escaping to a safe haven. Like, I understand why she doesn't want to, because as we saw in the last episode, she's clearly the jump on a grenade type of person. And I mean, that's definitely admirable, but I imagine there's a lot of people in her group that would kill for the opportunity to just escape all the death and despair for a bit, you know? But anyway, she goes on to push back, asking Oogi about the voice that helped them out a couple of days ago. But Oogi tells her that they can't go chasing a voice, and adds,
Besides, Naoto would be happy to see you back in school.
Which is another reference to her brother. And here we actually get to see him, Kallen, and Oogi hanging out. And I forgot to mention this in the previous video when I brought him up, but he's actually already dead. And I guess to go even further with his backstory, he was actually the leader of this sect of the resistance group up until his death. And after his death, Oogi wound up replacing him. But yeah, this dialogue here seems to allude to the fact that Naoto didn't want this kind of life for his sister, which, you know, makes sense. I mean, living this kind of life ultimately ended with him dying, so I could definitely see him preferring that she have a normal life of comfort as opposed to being in life or death situations like this. But anyway, Oogi ultimately ends the call, but not before saying,
"Forget about Shinjuku for now."
And him saying this triggers Kallen's memory of Lelouch telling her the same thing yesterday, which is kinda interesting. Like, she apparently had just let it go, despite being pretty aggressive with him once he had brought it up. But anyway, the combination of her and Oogi talking about the voice they heard back in Shinjuku, as well as Oogi reiterating the same thing Lelouch told her yesterday, sparks an idea in her mind.
No, it couldn't have been his voice.
Which is super interesting because Lelouch, or shit, Johnny Young Bosch, does have a pretty distinctive voice. Like, I can always tell when he's playing a character, be it Ichigo, Sasori, Haruo, or hell, I could even notice his screams in fucking Dragon Ball Fighters when he was voicing Broly, despite him not actually having any lines of dialogue. So, like, to me, this is actually very believable that she might make that connection. But anyway, from there we transition to later that day where we see Lelouch presenting in class. And while he's doing his presentation, we see Kallen making a point to listen to his voice. But try as she might, it's too difficult for her to remember. Which, I mean, fair, like you had a lot of shit going on that day. But yeah, after Lelouch finishes giving his speech and sits down, he takes notice of the fact that Kallen is watching him through her makeup mirror, which leads to this interesting moment when they're both just sitting in class thinking about how they might have to neutralize the threat.
The first opportunity.
I need to take care of him.
Anyway, from there, we fast forward to the end of their class, and we see Shirley come up and ask Lelouch if he's going to walk with her, but unfortunately for our sweet Shirley, Lelouch curbs the fuck out of her as he goes on to approach Kallen and asks if he can speak with her privately. And this causes all of the girls, but more specifically Shirley, to be like, what? And it doesn't get any better when Kallen responds by saying,
I was wondering when you were gonna ask. Huh?
And it's just so funny because they're about to go engage in some kind of covert warfare, which may very well end up with one of them killing the other. And all the while, Shirley is probably thinking that they're finna go out on a date or something. But yeah, from there, we actually switch to General Bartley again, who at the moment is currently transporting Prince Clovis's corpse to I'm not entirely sure where, but one thing I want to note is that he's being escorted by about a dozen Sutherlands. But I want y'all to peep the shoulders and the headpiece. Like, y'all remember what I said about the difference in colors, right? Well, since these are all purple, we know that they're just regular old Imperial Sutherlands. And I'm bringing this up because while they're traveling down this empty stretch of highway, they get ambushed by other Sutherlands. But if we take a look at their shoulders and headpiece, we can see that these are the purest. And if you're wondering why they're attacking other soldiers, well, at face value, it's because they seem to have an issue with Bartley's claims of not knowing why he left the prince's side.
But I've already told you!
That you don't remember? Still clinging to that ridiculous excuse?
And it's actually really fucked up because he's not lying, but I could see how from Jeremiah and company's perspective, it just sounds like a crock of shit. And it gets even worse because Bartley tells him that he can ask the others and that they'll vouch for him. And Jeremiah basically calls him a little bitch for trying to hide behind his subordinates. And it's just, damn, I actually feel really bad for this guy. Like, he really did fuck with the prince heavy. And for Jeremiah to basically insinuate that he was complicit in what happened to him, like, shit, that's gotta sting. But anyway, from there, we switch back to Kallen and Lelouch as they continue the conversation that began yesterday. Or, well, not really, because after Lelouch tells Kallen that they won't be disturbed, they end up getting disturbed by none other than...
I found it! Look! This is it, right?
Oh, sweet Shirley, out here cock-blocking without even trying. But yeah, it appears as though Lelouch, unwittingly, brought Kallen to her induction ceremony for the student council. And to be honest, not much really happens here. Basically, Millie tells Kallen and Lelouch that her grandfather, the owner of the school, has decided that Kallen should join the student council since it's one of the easier clubs to be a part of, unlike, say, the equestrian or swimming clubs. And then, from there, the other members of the council come down and formally introduce themselves to Kallen. And even Nunally makes an appearance, though, according to the others, she's only an honorary member of the council, seeing as she's still in middle school. But yeah, this scene is mostly just here to establish the fact that Kallen may become a more integral part of Lelouch's social life here at school. Well, that is, if they don't wind up killing each other first. But anyway, after the introductions are made, we see Rivel pull out a bottle of Moet and Shandon to celebrate. But Shirley, ever the rule follower, tries to take it away from him before he can get it open. And basically, their shenanigans end with the cork popping off and the stream of champagne shooting out and landing directly on Kallen. And I do want to take note of the fact that she just smacked that cork out of her face like she did with the bee. Like, her reflexes are insane. But yeah, seeing as she's now covered in champagne, she leaves to take a shower, and Lelouch is actually the one to bring her a change of clothes. And this scene is pretty intense because now they finally have the opportunity to talk without anyone listening in. And it's interesting because it starts off pretty casual, with him saying that he brought her some of his extra clothes and her commenting on the fact that he was able to bring them pretty quickly, which then leads to them talking about the fact that Lelouch lives here in this building with his sister due to her disability. And yeah, as Lelouch turns to walk out and leave, Kallen asks him to bring her her little pouch, and he obliges. But the moment he puts his hand out to give it to her, she grabs his wrist, causing him to drop it. And from there, she wastes no time asking him about Shinjuku.
Were you the one in Shinjuku?
And Lelouch tries to play it off at first by asking her what she's talking about, but that doesn't help things. In fact, it has the opposite effect and just serves to piss her off more as she tightens her grip and demands that he answers her. And the more he tries to stall, the more irritated she gets. Meanwhile, while she's been questioning him, she's also gone ahead and picked up the pouch that Lelouch dropped when she grabbed his wrist. And apparently, there's a fucking knife in there, which is... damn, that's actually a crazy switchblade. Like, it's so unsuspecting because you wouldn't expect a cute little pouch to also have a 4-inch blade in there like that. But anyway, just when it's looking like Kallen might go ahead and stab this guy, which actually here, right here, we're doing this? Like, this just doesn't seem smart at all. Because, okay, let's try and play this out real quick. Let's say you stab him. What happens next? Like, are you just gonna run out of here and leave the school and just never come back? Because if that's the case, then why even kill him? Why leave his little sister all alone when you could just, you know, not kill him and still leave the school and never come back? Like, if you're assuming that he knows that you're working with the resistance, then... I mean, even if he hasn't told anyone about it, you're still gonna now be on the run for murder. Like, is that any better of a situation to be in? She's not thinking things clearly here. Which, to be fair, I'm not gonna give her too much shit for. She's, a 17-year-old kid who's living a double life as both a normal student and a freedom fighter? Like, I think that given her age and the tremendous amount of pressure she's under, it makes sense that she might act rashly. And we'll actually see further evidence of that in the future. But yeah, while she may be acting rashly and not thinking things through, the same can't be said for old Mr. Lamperouge over here, because he's apparently thought of everything.
If I don't answer it, someone will come. That okay? Hello? Oh, it's for you. He says he knows you.
Glad you're still alive, Q1.
And okay, I know this might seem a little confusing, what with Lelouch being right here in front of her, but also apparently on the phone, and I will explain that, but first, let's make our way through this conversation a little more so that we can talk about all of it at once. So, yeah. Now, upon hearing the mystery man's voice on the phone, she wonders to herself if she was actually wrong about Lelouch being him. But she isn't really given too much time to think about it, as the voice follows up his first comment by saying,
1600 hours the day after tomorrow. The observation deck at Tokyo Tower. Come alone.
And it's at this moment that Kallen kind of forgets where she is, or rather, who she's with, as she yells,
Who are you? How did you arrange that ceasefire order? Hey, don't hang up!
Before the voice on the phone ends the call. And her talking about a ceasefire immediately changes the trajectory of this conversation, as Lelouch begins questioning her about what all of that was about, as if he doesn't already know. And when he does this, she starts fumbling over her words, only for Lelouch to give her an out by saying,
Let me guess. You're talking about a game? Something online?
And she goes along with it, saying that she was talking about a game, adding that she got into online gaming because she's always at home sick, which, good on her for adding that last part to make it seem even more credible. But anyway, with the vibe of the conversation now shifted, given she no longer suspects him, he goes ahead and takes it a step further by explaining why he brought up Shinjuku to her yesterday, saying,
That's what I was warning you about when I told you not to bring up Shinjuku before. Seriously, some guys will try to show you footage of what happened that day, and it's pretty damn grim.
And I'm not gonna lie, that was actually a really great explanation, because we even saw earlier in this episode that some of the students were, in fact, showing footage of the dead bodies in class. So, yeah. But anyway, that's pretty much the end of the scene. So now, let's actually talk about it. And let's start with the phone call itself, which, if you're anything like me, when I watched this, I couldn't help but feel like it was kind of bullshit. Like, I was thinking that it was super convenient that he just so happened to be in here when that call came through. And don't get me wrong, obviously I know that he set up the call to come through when it did, but I guess I should explain that too. The call was a recording, one that he made at some point before getting here. Honestly, if I had to guess, I imagine he did it while he was in his room. Because, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, he had stopped by his room to get Kallen some spare clothes. And while he was there, he probably realized that this would be the perfect way to go about getting her off his back. Because if you paid attention to the recording, he only ever said 4 sentences. Like, he didn't plan out a whole conversation or anything like that. So it's very believable that he could have just recorded that in just a few seconds. Also, on top of picking up the clothes and making the recording, he also used his Geass on Sayuko so that she'd make the call and play the recording for him. But anyway, the reason I initially thought this was bullshit was due to the timing. Like, the reason this situation worked out so well for Lelouch is because he was there when the call came through. Like, Kallen was in the shower when the call came in, so she very well could have just let it ring without picking it up. And even if she did pick it up, if Lelouch had already left the room, like he was planning to do before she asked him to pass her that switchblade, then I don't really see how this would clear things up for her. I mean, if anything, it would probably seem even more suspicious because if I was her, I'd be like, who else could this be but Lelouch? Like, I would think he just dropped the clothes off, walked out, and immediately called this bathroom from his cell phone. Because, I mean, who else would be calling this exact bathroom at this exact time to speak to me specifically? Like, what the fuck? Only 6 people even know I'm here right now, and only 2 of them are men. And shit, only 1 of them has already spoken to me regarding Shinjuku. Like, it's just silly. But whatever, silliness aside, I like the way Lelouch just completely turned the tables on her, forcing her to go from an offensive stance to a defensive one. Because she was ready to slit this dude's wrist, which is actually kind of odd, because even during that phone call she was thinking,
was I wrong?
Which implies that she was still working under the assumption that he was the guy that saved them in Shinjuku, and yet she was gonna stab him? Nope, let's not think too hard about that, because that doesn't actually make any sense at all. But whatever. Like I was saying, he forced her to go on the defensive because in her rashness, she kind of exposed herself in more ways than one. But still, fan service aside, she exposed herself by mentioning the ceasefire. But by Lelouch offering up his own explanation as to what he thought she was talking about, it served to kind of put her at ease. And then he went ahead and took it a step further by completely assuaging any thoughts that he might be involved with the situation by saying that he only brought up Shinjuku in an attempt to save her from seeing the gruesome aftermath of the conflict, thus making him seem all the more endearing and thoughtful. And while there is a moment of fan service where they have Lelouch comment on the fact that he can see that Kallen is naked, he ends up saying this as he walks out.
I won't tell anyone. Later.
Which further cements the fact that he's a good guy. And yeah, overall, it was a brilliant play, because now she kind of fucks with him a little bit. And you can tell by her tone as she says,
I was wrong,
that she genuinely feels bad about the fact that she was finna gut this man like a pig. But anyway, we fast forward a little bit as we see Lelouch and Kallen walking back to the rest of the student council. And upon meeting back up with the others, they find out that
Prince Clovis has been found dead.
And I want to point out that the first thing we actually hear in this scene is Nunally saying,
Lelouch, it's awful.
What is?
And I felt the need to point out the fact that she's reacting like that because, I mean, that's her brother. Half-brother, sure, but yeah, she's just now finding out that her older brother got murdered. And because of that, it makes sense that her reaction is so much more emotional than the others. But yeah, from there we shift our focus to a news broadcast that's being led by Jeremiah. And let's go ahead and hear what this piece of shit has to say.
Prince Clovis has been taken from us. He fought for peace and justice against all of the 11s. He died a martyr.
Oh, shut up, you fucking skid mark. Like, what an insane thing to say. This dude was a monster, not a martyr. But I get what he's trying to do, because you see this band of merry men and women behind him? Yeah, these are the purist faction, and you can tell that by the little red wing on their lapels. And basically what they're doing here is drumming up support for their cause, which is what Jeremiah was alluding to earlier in this episode. Like, they're framing this in such a way that it seems like the Japanese attacked and killed the prince after he called for a ceasefire. While, you know, omitting the fact that the prince sent in a whole military company to slaughter everyone in Shinjuku. But that doesn't jive with the narrative, now does it? Fucking hell. But yeah, they basically intend to use Clovis's death to their favor, especially considering the fact that they have, apparently, caught the person responsible for the murder. And if you're thinking, but Lelouch is right there, well, yeah, you're right. So who could it be? And maybe you're thinking, is it Bartley? And I'd say that that's not a bad guess. I mean, he was arrested when they retrieved the prince's body, but no, it's not him either. So, any other guesses? Anyone? No? Okay, well, let's see who's responsible for the prince's death.
The man suspected as the murderer has been captured. A former 11 and honorary Britannian, Suzaku Kururugi, arrested for murder.
And roll credits. Damn, this show really be leaving you hanging, don't it? But anyway, that's the end of this video. But before we wrap this one up, I want to take a second to thank all the folks over on our Patreon who help make these videos possible. Starting things off, I want to say thank you to our 24 admirable assessors. I also want to give a big thanks to all 114 of our invaluable investigators. Now, in addition to them, I want to shout out our 8 remarkable researchers: Arrow Falcon Green, Game and Alchemist, Pellets, Staff of the Crystal Serpent, The Best, Trinity Schiffer, Tyrant's Link, Vanellian, and Yggdrasil. And lastly, praise be to our 8 official overanalyzers: Asia, Cavarax XE, Chicken Wugget, C-Mart, Croy Raiden, Amelia, I Am the Blonde Asshole, and Joey Hellbig. I just want to say thanks again to all of y'all for helping make these videos possible. It honestly means more than you know. But yeah, if you liked this video, then consider dropping a like. If you really liked it, then consider subscribing. And if you just loved it and want to see more sooner, then consider joining the Patreon. Anyway, that's it for this time. Until next time, friends, peace.